The rain was a cold, relentless drum against the ancient stained glass windows of St. Jude's Chapel, each drop mirroring the chill that had seeped into the very marrow of my bones. I am Liam Thorne, and at 32, I stood there, a cybersecurity architect living a life meticulously engineered to be the complete antithesis of my past. My wife Clara, her hand a warm, unyielding anchor in mine, squeezed gently. Beside her, our daughter, Lily, just 5, clutched a wilting rose, her innocent eyes, wide and luminous, fixed on the polished mahogany casket. She was blissfully unaware of the tempest, both meteorological and emotional, that raged around us. We had built a sanctuary in Seattle, a modern, light-filled home with expansive windows that framed the tranquil waters of Puget Sound. My work at Sentinel CyberSec was more than just a job. It was a crusade. I designed and implemented impenetrable digital fortresses for the nation's most sensitive data, for multi-billion-dollar corporations, for government agencies haunted by unseen threats. Each line of code I meticulously crafted, every insidious vulnerability I detected and patched, was a silent, unshakable vow to protect my family. Clara, with her steadfast heart and artistic soul, and Lily, whose unadulterated laughter was, to my ears, the purest melody in the universe. This life, this profound sense of security and peace, was not merely a privilege. It was the spoils of a brutal, protracted war I had waged against the specters of my own history, a conflict fought on the battleground of my shattered childhood. My early years had been a relentless skirmish, played out in the forgotten, desolate landscape of Blackwood Creek, a small, insular town nestled deep within the verdant, yet somehow suffocating, forests of rural Washington. The air there always hung heavy with the scent of damp pine needles and the cloying, sickly sweet aroma of stale beer. Our house, a ramshackle ranch-style relic clinging precariously to a crumbling foundation, was less a home and more a cage. Its walls, peeling and stained, seemed to breathe in the despair and exhale the stale residue of broken dreams. My father, Victor Thorne, was the architect of that despair, a man utterly consumed by the twin devils of cheap whiskey and the siren call of high-stakes poker. He had once been a logger, a brute of a man whose shoulders had borne the weight of colossal timber, but his back had given out long before his insatiable greed, leaving him to find solace, or, more accurately, utter ruin, in the dimly lit, smoke-choked back rooms of illicit gambling dens. His presence in our lives was a constant, unpredictable storm, bursts of guttural, drunken rage, punctuated by long, oppressive silences that felt heavier than any shouted insult. These silences were broken only by the clinking of half-empty bottles and the desperate, guttural pleas for more money, always more money, from whoever was unlucky enough to cross his path. My mother, Eleanor, was the quiet, unwavering eye of that perpetual storm. She was a woman seemingly fashioned from the most fragile glass, yet possessed of an inner steel that defied comprehension. She toiled relentlessly, working 2, sometimes 3, jobs just to keep the barest necessities on our table. By day, her nimble, calloused fingers would weave intricate beauty into fabric as a seamstress, transforming discarded remnants into exquisite creations. By night, she would scrub away the accumulated grime of other people's lives as a cleaner, returning home in the pre-dawn hours, bone-weary but unbroken. Her eyes, often shadowed with an almost unbearable weariness, held an enduring, profound kindness that utterly belied the relentless harshness of her existence. She never complained, not once. She never raised her voice, even when Dad's bellowing shook the very foundations of our house. But I saw the silent tears that, in the dead of night, traced lonely paths down her gaunt cheeks, and I heard the whispered prayers, desperate and heartfelt, for a salvation that, tragically, never seemed to arrive. And then there was Noah, my younger brother, 3 years my junior. Noah, who, despite Mom's valiant, desperate efforts, seemed to have inherited every single one of Dad's volatile, self-destructive genes. From the earliest days, he would sneak Mom's meager, hard-earned cash for schoolyard bets, a seemingly innocuous start that swiftly escalated. He graduated with terrifying speed to high-stakes underground card games, to ill-advised investments in dubious schemes, to quick fixes that always, inevitably, spiraled into greater debt. Noah followed the path of least resistance, a path paved with the illusory promise of easy money and fleeting thrills. He viewed Dad's recklessness not as a dire warning, but as a misguided, albeit exhilarating, form of freedom. "You're too straight, Liam," he'd scoff, his eyes alight with a dangerous glint. "Too afraid to really live. This is how you make real money. You wouldn't understand." His ambition, untethered by any shred of morality, terrified me more profoundly than any of Dad's drunken rants. It was a cold, calculating hunger that I recognized, chillingly, as a darker echo of Victor's own. "Liam, you're my steady star," Mom used to whisper, her voice a fragile balm against the omnipresent chaos, her hand a lifeline in mine. "You're different, honey. You'll do something good, something real." Those words were my compass, my anchor, the secret, burning fuel that propelled me through school, through countless sleepless nights studying by the faint glow of a desk lamp, through a hard-won scholarship to a state university, and eventually into the cutthroat, unforgiving world of technology. Even when I moved to Seattle, I would make the 4-hour drive back to Blackwood Creek every month, a ritual of pilgrimage. I'd sit in her tiny, immaculately clean kitchen, drinking the surprisingly strong, earthy, herbal tea she insisted on, listening to her quiet, often poignant stories. I absorbed her unwavering belief in me, her steadfast validation of my existence beyond the suffocating, dysfunctional narrative of our family. She was the only person who truly saw me, who understood the quiet anxieties that churned beneath my calm exterior, who recognized the spark of something more within me. 2 months ago, the calls began. First, a cryptic message from a distant cousin, relayed through Clara that Mom wasn't looking well. Then, a hushed, strained conversation with a local doctor, confirming the devastating diagnosis, an aggressive, rapidly progressing form of pancreatic cancer. She'd hidden it, of course, for months, perhaps even years, silently bearing the burden, shielding us from the truth. "Didn't want to worry you, honey," she'd croaked over the phone, her voice barely a whisper, a mere ghost of its former gentle resonance. My heart had shattered in that moment, fracturing into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Even in the face of her own terrifying mortality, her thoughts, her last, dying efforts were for us. I had rushed back, bringing Clara and Lily, desperate to somehow reverse the inevitable. But it was too late. She faded quickly, her last breath, a whisper of wind, holding my hand, her eyes still holding that profound, gentle kindness, an unspoken apology for leaving me to face the monsters, alone. Now, she was gone, and I stood at her funeral, a stark, gray tableau against the backdrop of the relentless drizzling rain. The few attendees were mostly elderly neighbors, their faces etched with quiet sorrow, a couple of her former colleagues from the tailor shop, and me, standing sentinel by the coffin, Clara and Lily beside me, my solace. Across the aisle, slumped in a pew, was Victor, his face bloated and mottled, his eyes bloodshot, the faint, cloying scent of stale whiskey clinging to him even through the overwhelming fragrance of lilies. Next to him, Noah, pale and fidgety, his eyes darting restlessly across the sparse crowd, scanning, always scanning, as if searching for an escape route, or perhaps a new, unforeseen opportunity. The air between us, the 3 men tied by blood, was thick, almost suffocating, with unspoken resentments, with years of festering hurt, with decades of unaddressed anger that stretched back to the very roots of my memory. It was a tension that felt almost palpable, a silent scream hanging in the air. The eulogy, delivered by Pastor Miller, a kindly old man whose voice trembled with genuine emotion, was mercifully brief. He spoke of Eleanor's quiet strength, her unwavering faith, her tireless hands, her boundless capacity for love. He didn't know the half of it. He didn't know the battle she'd fought, the silent, agonizing sacrifices she'd made, the emotional and financial abuse she'd endured, with a quiet dignity that was almost unbearable to witness. He didn't know the hidden depths of her resilience, the unyielding spirit that had burned brightly even in the darkest corners of our broken home. My throat tightened, a burning, aching lump of grief, and a simmering, incandescent fury. As the last mournful notes of the hymn faded into the hushed chapel, a small, unassuming woman in a sensible tweed suit approached me. She possessed sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing and a no-nonsense demeanor that commanded immediate respect. "Mr. Thorne?" she asked, her voice low yet impeccably clear. "I'm Eleanor's attorney, Brenda Albright. She insisted I speak with you immediately after the service." She handed me a crisp, white business card, its embossed lettering surprisingly elegant. "There are some matters of considerable importance we need to discuss. Perhaps tomorrow morning, at my office in Olympia." Her emphasis on considerable importance struck me, a subtle yet distinct inflection that pricked through my haze of grief. I nodded, numbly stuffing the card into my pocket. My mother? An attorney? It was an utterly absurd thought, a non sequitur in the grim symphony of the day. Mom, who meticulously patched torn garments, who scrubbed away the grime from corporate offices, who counted every penny with painstaking care, had an attorney? My mind, still reeling, could only rationalize it. It must be for the house, I thought, a dilapidated shack in Blackwood Creek, worth maybe 50 grand on a good day, or perhaps some long-lost relative, a distant cousin she'd mentioned once or twice, had left her a small sum. But the attorney's intensity, the careful, almost secretive way she had approached me, her direct, unwavering gaze, suggested something far more significant, something beyond the usual formalities of probate. A tiny, almost imperceptible flicker of intrigue, a faint spark in the vast desolation of my grief, ignited deep within me. The wake, held at the church hall, was a dismal affair. A meager spread of plastic cups filled with lukewarm coffee and plates piled with stale, unappetizing biscuits. Victor, his face already redder, his movements more erratic from the constant nursing of a hip flask he'd kept hidden, cornered me near the folding tables. "So, Liam," he slurred, his breath noxious with the stale stench of whiskey. "What's the plan now? About the house? Your mother? She was always so sentimental about that dump. But it's worth something, isn't it? To us? Family?" He gestured vaguely between himself, Noah, and me, his hand shaking. His eyes, though bleary, held a calculating, greedy glint. Noah, always the bolder, more direct opportunist, stepped forward, his eyes narrowed, scrutinizing me. "Yeah, Liam. And her savings? She must have had something put away, right? All those years working, she was a quiet one. We're family. We look out for each other." He sounded like a broken record, mimicking the very platitudes he'd never lived by, his voice laced with an insincere sympathy that grated on my nerves. Their brazen presumption, their utterly shameless opportunism in the very immediate aftermath of Mom's death sickened me to my core. I could feel Clara's hand on my arm, a subtle warning, a silent plea for me to remain calm, to not give in to the rage that was beginning to simmer beneath my carefully constructed composure. "We'll discuss everything later," I said, my voice flat, devoid of any discernible emotion, a blank wall against their probing. "Right now, we're grieving." I gently, yet firmly, steered Clara and Lily away, the unspoken chasm between us, between my life and theirs, widening into an unbridgeable abyss. The next morning, the rain had finally ceased, but the sky above Olympia remained a bruised, sullen purple. I left Clara and Lily at a small, cozy bed and breakfast near the waterfront, its charming decor a welcome respite from the somberness of the previous day. I drove to Brenda Albright's office, a sleek, modern space housed in a gleaming glass tower, overlooking the serene waters of Capitol Lake. The stark contrast to the decaying rustic landscape of Blackwood Creek was jarring, almost mocking in its elegance and efficiency. It felt like stepping into an entirely different dimension, a world where order and logic prevailed over chaos and despair. Miss Albright, as precise and composed as the day before, led me into a spacious office bathed in cool, diffused light. On her polished desk, a single, unassuming manila envelope lay waiting, with Liam scrawled on it in Mom's familiar, elegant, slightly shaky handwriting. My heart seized in my chest, a sudden, sharp pang of grief mixed with an unsettling premonition. She gestured to a comfortable leather chair, her expression unreadable. "Eleanor was a truly remarkable woman, Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice soft but firm, far more remarkable than most people ever knew. "She was a seamstress and a cleaner," I said, a defensive, almost aggressive edge to my voice, as if her simple professions needed defending. She worked tirelessly her entire life. She did, Miss Albright agreed, her gaze steady, unwavering, meeting mine head on. But she also harbored a hobby, a profound passion, really, for art restoration, a highly specialized and lucrative field when done correctly. I stared at her, utterly dumbfounded, the words failing to form on my tongue. Art restoration? My mother? I don't understand. The image of her hands, calloused and rough from years of manual labor, meticulously restoring a priceless canvas, was so incongruous it bordered on the surreal. Indeed, she affirmed, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips, a glimmer of admiration in her eyes. A self-taught prodigy, it seems. For over 20 years, she quietly acquired, restored, and discreetly sold undervalued pieces. She possessed an uncanny, almost preternatural eye for hidden gems, for forgotten masterpieces, languishing in attics and dusty antique shops, and an extraordinary, almost magical touch for breathing new life into them, for restoring their original splendor. She operated entirely off the books. Mr. Thorne, through a meticulously curated network of private collectors, she painstakingly built over decades. She was discreet, extremely discreet, a ghost in the high-stakes world of fine art, and remarkably successful. She opened a leather-bound folder, its pages rustling softly, and pushed a document across the polished surface of the desk. Her last will and testament. It is simple, direct, and utterly unequivocal. Everything she owned, every single asset, every penny she painstakingly amassed, is bequeathed solely to you, Liam Thorne. Not a single cent to your father, Victor Thorne, nor your brother, Noah Thorne. She made that abundantly clear, with precise, legally unassailable language and several layered contingencies to ensure her wishes were respected, even in the face of challenge. My eyes, wide with disbelief, scanned the document. My breath caught in my throat, a painful constriction. It wasn't just a few tens of thousands from the sale of the dilapidated house. It wasn't even a modest nest egg. The numbers swam before my eyes, then slowly, horrifyingly, came into sharp focus. Multiple bank accounts, diversified investment portfolios, a small, highly valuable, and meticulously cataloged collection of restored paintings, listed by number, currently held in a climate-controlled high-security vault in a private gallery in New York. The total sum was staggering, incomprehensible. $20 million. $20 million. My mother, the quiet seamstress, the tireless cleaner, the woman who had lived a life of apparent scarcity and hardship, had secretly amassed a fortune that dwarfed anything I could ever have conceived. It was an inheritance that transformed mere wealth into something monumental, a profound testament to her hidden brilliance, her unwavering resilience, her fierce, unwavering determination to provide a safety net, not just for herself, but for me, and by extension, for Clara and Lily, the family she knew I desperately sought to protect. She knew, didn't she? I whispered, my voice hoarse, barely audible, the truth dawning on me with a sickening clarity. About Dad and Noah, about what they are, about what they would do. Miss Albright nodded, her gaze softening almost imperceptibly. She did, Mr. Thorne. She expressed profound concern for your safety and the long-term well-being of your wife and daughter. She explicitly stated in a private, notarized letter addressed solely to me that she wanted to ensure her legacy provided you with complete financial independence and the unassailable means to protect yourself from any attempts by her immediate family to exploit her assets, or indeed, to jeopardize your future. She anticipated their every move. She then carefully pushed the unassuming manila envelope, the one with my name in Mom's handwriting, across the desk towards me. This is for you, Liam, only for you. She said it was the last piece of the puzzle. I opened it, my hands trembling uncontrollably, a tremor that originated deep within my soul. Inside was a single, folded sheet of paper, Mom's familiar, elegant handwriting filling the page, each word etched with love and sorrow and a fierce, protective will. My dearest Liam, If you are reading this, my brave, steady star, then I am no longer with you. And my heart aches, truly aches, at the thought of leaving you, my protector, alone to face the world without my quiet presence. But know that I am finally, truly at peace, free from the suffocating shadows that haunted our little house for so long, free from the endless struggle. The money, Liam, is for you, and for Clara, and for Lily. It is a shield, my son, a fortress crafted from every silent tear I cried, every desperate, whispered prayer I offered, every stolen moment of work I squeezed into the lonely, pre-dawn hours. Your father and Noah, they are lost. They have chosen a path of relentless consumption and utter destruction, and there is nothing you or I, no matter how much we wished, could ever do to save them. I tried, Liam. For so long, I tried to pull them from the abyss. But true love, my brave boy, sometimes means setting boundaries, stark and unyielding, no matter how profoundly painful they may be. Sometimes, it means protecting yourself and those you cherish most fiercely from the very people who share your blood, from those who would willingly, blindly drag you down into their own self-made hell. This money is your freedom. It is your liberation from the shackles of our past. Use it wisely. Use it to build an unshakable future for your family, a life unburdened by the bitter echoes of my own struggles. Do not tell Victor or Noah about it. They will never understand its true purpose. They will only see an opportunity, a bottomless well to feed their insatiable addictions, their endless parasitic hunger. They would bleed you dry, my son, just as they systematically tried to bleed me dry for decades. This is my final act of protection for you, my most precious gift. Keep it secret. Guard it fiercely. Protect what is yours, your peace, your family's future. I know this is a heavy burden, a momentous secret to carry. But you are strong, Liam. You always were. You carry my strength, my quiet resilience, and my unwavering, stubborn hope for a better, brighter future. Live fully, love fiercely, and never ever let anyone diminish your inherent worth. You are my legacy, more than any fortune could ever be. All my love, always. Mom, tears, hot and stinging, blurred my vision, tracing paths down my face, mingling with the last vestiges of grief. My mother, the quiet hero, the unsung architect of her own destiny, had played the long game. She has suffered in silence, toiled in secret, not for herself, not for material comfort, but for me, for my freedom, for the safety of the family I was building. She knew them. She knew Victor and Noah better than they knew themselves. She knew exactly what they would do, how their parasitic natures would manifest. The $20 million wasn't merely money. It was a strategically placed weapon against their destructive influence, a final, unassailable boundary against the endless cycle of their greed. It was her last, profound act of love. I spent the next few hours with Miss Albright, the legal details a blur against the overwhelming emotional impact of Mom's revelation. The funds were securely held in diversified accounts, the art pieces professionally appraised, cataloged, and stored in highly secure, climate-controlled vaults. Miss Albright had anticipated every conceivable challenge from Victor or Noah, covering every legal base, constructing a legal fortress around my inheritance. My mother, the true cybersecurity architect of her own life, had built an impenetrable defense around her final, most precious legacy. She had, in essence, reverse engineered their greed and designed a solution that left them with nothing. That evening, back at the tranquil bed and breakfast, I held Clara close, the immense weight of the secret pressing down on me, yet a profound, unshakable sense of purpose solidifying within my soul. I told her everything, from the shocking $20 million sum to the heartbreaking, prescient words of Mom's letter, the dark, undeniable truths about Victor and Noah's parasitic natures. Clara, always my unwavering rock, listened with a quiet, profound understanding, her hand stroking my hair, her touch a comforting presence. Your mother was truly extraordinary, Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. And she was absolutely right. You have to protect this. Protect us. Her conviction reinforced my own. The following weeks unfolded as a delicate, high-stakes dance. Victor, increasingly desperate and agitated by the lack of direct financial access, called constantly. His voicemails grew progressively more belligerent, laced with a barely concealed venom. Liam, we need to talk about your mother's affairs. I'm her husband. I have rights. You can't just cut me out. He'd bellow, his voice hoarse, often punctuated by drunken hiccups. His entitlement was boundless. Noah, ever the more subtle, insidious manipulator, tried to worm his way in, alternating between feigned grief and a nauseating newfound desire to reconnect. Liam, it's just so sad about Mom. He'd begin, his voice dripping with false sincerity. She would have wanted us to stick together, you know? What about her savings? She must have had a little something. We could really use a fresh start, me and Dad. You're doing so well, Liam, you wouldn't even miss it. Just a small loan for family. His words were a sickening echo of his past manipulations, a familiar tune of self-pity and thinly veiled greed. I listened to their manipulative pleas, my jaw clenched so tight it ached, Mom's prescient words echoing in a constant, unwavering loop in my mind. They would bleed you dry. My extensive training as a cybersecurity expert, ironically, proved to be an invaluable asset in this intensely personal battle. I understood their tactics, their vulnerabilities, their relentless, predatory pursuit of an easy mark. I had spent years building digital defenses for Fortune 500 companies against sophisticated cyber threats. Now, I was applying those same principles to protect my family from analog predators. From the relentless, insidious threat of my own blood, I set up burner phones, encrypted communications, and created ghost email addresses, obscuring my digital footprint. I meticulously documented every call, every threat, every attempt at contact. I understood their patterns, their psychological weak points, and, crucially, their financial desperation. There's nothing to discuss, I tell Victor, my voice calm, flat, utterly devoid of any emotional engagement. Mom left no will that concerned you. Everything was taken care of through legal channels handled by her attorney, Miss Albright. You have no claim, legally or otherwise. That's a lie, he'd roar, but his bluster was empty, his threats toothless without any legal standing. He tried contacting Miss Albright, but she, a seasoned professional, simply reiterated the legal facts, coldly and efficiently, leaving him with no avenue for recourse. Noah, realizing his emotional manipulation wasn't working, escalated his tactics. He started showing up. First, at my office building, attempting to bypass security with flimsy excuses about personal deliveries. Getting past Sentinel CyberSec's state-of-the-art security protocols was a minor, albeit annoying, inconvenience for me, given my intimate knowledge of the system. Then, more disturbingly, he showed up at Lily's preschool, claiming to be an uncle looking to surprise her. That was the line. That was the absolute inviolable boundary. I implemented stringent, unyielding security measures immediately. Our home surveillance system was upgraded to a military-grade network linked directly to my personal devices. I installed encrypted panic buttons throughout the house, connected to a private security firm. I provided Lily's preschool with high-resolution photos of Victor and Noah, explicitly instructing them that under no circumstances were they to be allowed near Lily, and that any attempts at contact were to be reported to me and, if necessary, to the authorities. It was a dark, unsettling period, a constant gnawing reminder of the shadows I thought I had definitively escaped, but it fortified my resolve beyond measure. One afternoon, Noah, seemingly more desperate and disheveled than usual, ambushed me outside my favorite coffee shop, a small, unassuming place that served as my brief sanctuary. Liam, we need to talk, man. Seriously. Dad's really sick. He needs money. You're rich, aren't you? You always were the golden boy. Just a little help. For Mom's sake, man. His eyes, usually shifty and calculating, tried desperately to convey sincerity, to evoke some misplaced sense of familial obligation. But all I saw was the raw, animalistic desperation of a man utterly trapped by his own insurmountable vices. You had countless chances, Noah, I said, my voice steady, unyielding, like granite. Mom gave you every opportunity. She gave you money, she gave you support, and you threw every single one of them away. This isn't about Mom's sake. This is about your habits, your addiction, and I will not under any circumstances, enable them further. Not with Mom's legacy, not with my family's future. "You selfish bastard," he exploded, his face contorting into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, his voice rising, drawing the uncomfortable attention of passers-by. "You always were. Just like her, secretly hoarding everything. While we suffered. You're no better than Dad. You just hide it better. You're a hypocrite." His words, vicious and venomous, struck a raw nerve, a deliberate attempt to weaponize my mother's sacred legacy against me, to twist her immense sacrifice into an accusation of my own selfishness. But in that very moment, they also reinforced my unshakable resolve. He saw her secret generosity not as love, but as greed, her meticulous protection not as foresight, but as hoarding. He was truly irretrievably lost, incapable of seeing beyond his own warped perception of the world. "Get out of my life, Noah," I said, my voice cold, clipped, utterly devoid of the warmth, the hope I had once desperately tried to share with him. "Stay away from my family. Stay away from my daughter. Or I will use every legal means at my disposal and every tool in my professional arsenal to ensure you regret it." My cybersecurity background wasn't just about protecting data. It encompassed a comprehensive understanding of digital forensics, private investigation networks, and the intricate legal pathways to obtain restraining orders and cease and desist mandates. It gave me the knowledge and the power to protect my physical world too, to track, to trace, to anticipate their every desperate predatory move. He recoiled, genuinely surprised by the unyielding steel in my voice, the absolute finality of my words. He opened his mouth, trying to bluster, to threaten, but I simply turned and walked away, leaving him sputtering, defeated, on the sidewalk. It was the hardest conversation I'd ever had. A painful, surgical incision, severing the last cancerous tendrils of my past. But it was absolutely, unequivocally necessary. With Clara, I began to plan. The $20 million wasn't just a fortune. It was a profound responsibility, a sacred trust bestowed by my mother's ultimate sacrifice. We used a carefully calculated portion to secure our family's future beyond anything I'd ever dared to dream, setting up ironclad educational funds for Lily, investing in stable, ethical ventures that aligned with our values, ensuring that generations of Thorns would never know the grinding poverty or the corrosive fear that had defined my own childhood. But the substantial majority, the true heart of Mom's remarkable legacy, we decided to dedicate to a cause that would have made her immensely proud, a cause that would redeem the pain she had endured. We established the Eleanor Thorne Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing comprehensive support for victims of financial abuse and gambling addiction. Clara, with her boundless empathy and compassionate spirit, became the driving force behind its community outreach programs. Her artistic eye now applied to designing pamphlets and organizing support groups. My expertise in cybersecurity proved invaluable once again, helping to build secure, anonymous online platforms where victims could seek help without fear, access vital resources, and learn how to protect their own assets and digital identities from predatory family members. We hired dedicated counselors, experienced legal aid experts, and shrewd financial advisors, creating a holistic support system. It was a quiet revolution, born directly from my mother's silent, lifelong battle, a transformation of her enduring suffering into a profound source of healing for others. One day, several months later, a small, unassuming local news report flickered across my screen as I worked. Victor Thorne, arrested for illegal gambling and loan sharking, his mugshot a grim, distorted reflection of the man who had once terrorized our home. Noah Thorne, caught in a related bust, his face looking gaunt, defeated, his eyes empty of their usual predatory glint. Their choices, their relentless pursuit of easy money and fleeting thrills had finally, inexorably, caught up with them. There was no elation, no triumph in seeing their downfall, only a quiet, profound sense of melancholic confirmation of my mother's prescient wisdom. They were victims of their own destructive making, lost to a cycle of their own creation. And that cycle, at least with me, with my family, was finally, irrevocably broken. Years passed. Lily, now a bright, curious teenager, her eyes mirroring Clara's artistic soul and, I sometimes thought, a flicker of Eleanor's quiet wisdom, asked me about her grandma Eleanor. I told her stories of a kind, strong woman who loved her deeply, who had a hidden talent for art, and who taught me the true meaning of resilience and the fierce power of self-preservation. I didn't tell her about the $20 million or the protracted, painful battles I'd fought with Victor and Noah. Not yet. Those were scars I carried, lessons I had to learn alone, in the crucible of my own experience. But I would tell her, when she was older, about the Eleanor Thorne Foundation, about how her grandmother's quiet strength and immense sacrifice had transformed profound pain into a boundless purpose, transforming a personal tragedy into a radiant beacon of hope for countless others, a legacy that transcended mere wealth. Sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't just money, however vast. It is the unquantifiable freedom to build a life on your own terms, utterly liberated from the suffocating shadows of the past. It is the unwavering courage to sever toxic ties, to meticulously protect your hard-won peace, and to honor the silent, immense sacrifices of those who truly loved you, truly believed in you. My mother, the quiet seamstress, the hidden artist, the silent warrior, had given me more than a fortune. She had given me a new life, a future built on an unshakable foundation of fierce love and unwavering self-preservation. And thank God, with every fiber of my being, I chose to keep her secret. It wasn't just my inheritance. It was my profound, beautiful, hard-won liberation.